I mean, I think the concept of a hero is in fact that, the Nelson Mandelas, the Gandhis of this world is in fact because they're extraordinary. And suddenly every company is pitching itself as extraordinary. And honestly, if I think most companies, sat down in front of a psychologist, the psychologist probably would say that you got megalomania or delusion.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of Biomarket Insights TV. My name is Paul MacDonald and I'm delighted today to be joined by Thomas Kolster. Thomas is the founder and creative director of the Goodvertising Agency and author of a very interesting book called The Hero Trap. Hi Thomas, how are you?
Hi, Paul. Thank you so much. That is actually the book just there. I'm, I'm lovely calling in from Croatia this time. Usually based out of Copenhagen. So that sort of explains the mountains there in the background.
Very nice. You're in Croatia and I'm in West London. I know where I think I'd rather be.
True, true.
Well, listen, great. Thanks for joining us today, Thomas. Really appreciate your time this morning. So, Thomas, today's episode is entitled "Doing Good for People and Planet is also good for brand and bottom line." Our viewers are going to be really interested in how they balance the three P's of people, profit, purpose, how they market their sustainability agenda with sincerity, and how they avoid greenwashing and falling into the hero trap. Okay, so let's get into the guts of everything. So, founder, creative director, marketing activist and advisor, sustainability normalizer, international speaker and author. I have no idea where to start. So why don't you tell our BMI TV viewers a little bit about yourself?
The longest job title in the world, right? To be honest, I think, my background used to be in advertising. So started out at an agency in the early years, and probably at about 10 years into my career, I had this light bulb moment provoked by the climate summit in Copenhagen, and I was like, hell no, our elected government leaders can't do anything about this. So I turned to some of the companies, the brands, and thought, what if they could stand up to some of these challenges? And that was the beginning of sort of my journey into this space with a book called Goodvertising, and so also the name of the agency. And so since then, we have been strong advocates for the much needed change, and we work sort of across the whole ecosystem. We work with brands, organizations, we work with impact startups, we work with other agencies to push this agenda on several different fronts. Education, because I think, like we do right now, I think we we need to shift our mindsets. We do that on a consultancy basis, so advise brands on how to avoid the hero trap, how to build meaningfulness. And lastly, we do work with impact startups, which I'm super passionate about. And I mean, in your sphere, there's so many exciting startups right now. That's absolutely exciting to see from my point of view.
Yeah, and it's the startups are if you like the energy in this sector, and we cover a lot of the startups within our biomarket insights.com news portal. And one of their challenges is actually getting from startup to scale up.
Yeah.
And there's a number of reasons, not just in this field, but there's a number of reasons why such a high percentage of startups don't get to that next sort of growth phase. So I suppose that's one of the areas where you help them as well.
Uh, Definitely, and I think a lot of that is obviously getting the story right, um, finding out the meaningful role that you play in people's lives, or in your customers' lives. I think those are two pivotal questions. So typically, we do, accelerators with them. We do sort of even one-on-one strategy stuff with startups. And it's a field that is exciting for me as well because typically we work with much bigger companies like the IKEAs and the P&Gs of the world. So it really gives a much more kind of bottom up grassroots insight into what's sort of really happening and some of the challenges to big business today.
Yeah, yeah. So tell me a bit about the good advertising movement that you created. What does it hope to achieve?
So as I said, I mean, it was something that was started about 10 years ago with the first book, and at the time, being a young advertising creative, for me it was just a frustration with what's going on, and basically giving a community of peers a platform for them to engage in and realize that whatever they do, their work, their voice actually truly matters in creating this shift. So it's sort of like a meeting place, a place you could go to for inspiration if you want to know some of the latest stuff that's happening around the world in this space when it comes to communication. And it's quite a diverse group of people, and it's really been exciting to see the early days of purpose and brands standing up for something else than just blocking products. With the likes of Dove and Patagonia and some of these brands we all know. And today, where the marketplace is just a completely different marketplace because it's um, crowded with brands pretending to be heroes in our lives and trying to sort all the ills of society. And obviously, one of my big question marks there is that are people really trusting these efforts, and are we really right now seeing the business results as we saw about a decade ago? And I'm really doubting that.
Yeah, okay. And so a little bit of a statement for you, I suppose. Um, the majority of do good efforts from brands are ridiculous and nothing but a cheeky pickup line to charm consumers into buying more stuff. A, do you recognize this statement?
Guilty as charged.
Okay, good, good, good. I'm glad you know your own website. That's good. And can you expand on you mentioned it a little bit a few minutes ago, but can you expand on it? Maybe give some examples. You don't have to sort of name names, obviously, but yeah, expand on that statement for me.
No, for sure. I mean, as I said, I follow this movement with the first book. I was a big believer in purpose. I was a big believer in brands and the need for them to stand up and do their part. I think the problem arises when, you know, today, you've got to do your stuff. I mean, you've got to fix your supply chains. You've got to do all this stuff. You've got to shift the company in a more sustainable direction. But nobody, in fact, said you had to put on the hero cape. you know, and I think that's where the issue arises when your company, or for example, the CEO, and I see this again and again right now, that every CEO is sitting on the stage and not talking about financial results, but about all the betterment they want to do in the world. And is that really trustworthy? I mean, I think the concept of a hero is, in fact, that the Nelson Mandelas, the Gandhis of this world is, in fact, because they're extraordinary.
Mhm.
And suddenly every company is pitching itself as extraordinary. And honestly, if I think most companies, sat down in front of a psychologist, the psychologist probably would say that you got megalomania or delusion. Take Patagonia as an example, just for the fun of it, right? And if you really listen to what they say, we're in the business to save our home planet. That sounds a bit grandiose, doesn't it? And I hear a lot of those, um, doing good for people and planet, for better tomorrow, all these things. And I think the problem is that most people don't look at companies as the do-gooders. I mean, my niece, she's 15. All she's seen from these companies in her lifetime is basically them cutting down the rainforest, being the ones to blame for societal ills. So
Mm.
there's a major gap between what the companies are saying and what people are thinking about them. Just because you're cleaning up your own room, you made the mess in the first place. You probably shouldn't run into your mum and say, Mom, I've got to put an ad in the TV. I'm going to put up a billboard and brag about I cleaned up my own shit. No, sorry about the cursing, but that's what I'm seeing. And that's the hero trap.
Yeah, that's really interesting, isn't it? Because it's, um, we're starting to see the ESG of global brands being challenged. Excuse me. They're being challenged by industry, by consumers, and regulators. And I'm thinking, of the recent case brought by the advertising ethics jury of the French advertising regulator against Adidas and the sustainability claims of their famous Stan Smith trainers, right?
Yeah.
And there's plenty of others out there. So what would your advice be with how companies and brands approach the very complicated subject of sustainability marketing, if that's even the badge we should give it? Because yes, you want to sell your product. B, you want to communicate that you're doing that in a responsible way. But C, you don't want to be seen as the type of establishment that you just described.
Yeah, and I think it's a tough balance because obviously companies are feeling the heat from many fronts, as you're saying, legislators, consumers, investors, in fact, as well, are playing a much bigger part today in adding pressure to all of this. I think for me, it's about reframing leadership. It's about getting the basics right. I think for too long, we've built brands that had this sort of navel gazing focus. And what they forgot was, in fact, to play a meaningful role in people's lives. Because I think by the end of the day, that's what it's about. And one of the questions I asked myself in the early days of writing my second book was, I mean, what leader, brand, organization have in fact really created change in my life? And and I'll ask your viewers to ask themselves that question because my list was in fact very short, which is surprising with so many brands pitching themselves as doing all sorts of good stuff. And so for me, in getting this right, if you want to fix a relationship, it's as basic. I mean, I can go to my girlfriend and I can say, you know what, honey, I promise I'm going to be a better man tomorrow. I promise I'm going to pick up that toilet seat tomorrow. Saying at one point won't cut it, right? Then you start doing stuff, oh, look at it, honey, the toilet seat is down. I did it, bringing her flowers, trying to give her a hug once in a while. And and that's great, the saying and the doing, and that's what we're seeing right now from brands. But I think the ultimate proof point is in fact um, how you make her feel when she feel loved, when she feel appreciated, when she feels that you're growing her. And so essentially the big leadership shift I'm asking, the big one question is, in fact, who can you help people become? How can your customers feel that you have helped them become more sustainable, healthier, more connected? Because that, for me, is really the ultimate proof point in this game. I think claims won't cut it anymore. Actions are not enough. It's really about getting me to that end goal. And I think this is where brands should be focusing their efforts on. And it really becomes from the sort of leadership that you put out there.
Yeah, and that brings me very nicely on to a question, I suppose, about, some people might say that doing good for people and planet is not good for brand and bottom line.
Yeah.
If we take the example of the Danone CEO, Emmanuel Faber, he stepped down from his position as a result of being unable to balance shareholder value creation and sustainability. So, are we? Will the balance always been will the balance always been tipped in the favour of the majority shareholders, whose priority is clearly profit over any other letter of the alphabet? So, are we being fanciful?
I think we are if we put up, this sort of purist moral high ground, do good for people and planet type thing. Because we human beings are full of flaws. And one thing I've learned, and the one thing that I say in the book is, in fact, if you want to if you want to create change, the only one who can create change in your life is yourself. I mean, your doctors can tell you to quit those cigarettes. I mean, your wife and children can beg you to do so, but you're in fact the only one who can do so. And so, if we want to create that change, I think it's important that we anchor that in lives, in meaningfulness. And I think this is where purpose really comes alive because you get the balancing act right. And let me give you an example. There's a health insurance company called Discovery. You might know it. Uh, what they say is not something like save the whole society, blah, 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 and make them healthier. They say incentivizing people to live healthier. It's something that both resonates inside and outside the company. And by having such a clear focus, not a broad do good for way too broad, it's not operational. They have a very singular focus. And by having that, they've activated that through products and services and have in fact made people um, um, exercise more, eat healthier, and by that, obviously paying out less in premiums. So it's a more profitable business model. I think that the companies that get this right, that figure out the meaningful role they can play in people's lives, then you can get the balance right. Because 80% of the time, what I see is what I call a two-headed purpose monster. The one head says profit, profit, profit,
Mm.
and the other one is saying do good for people and planet. And that's what we saw at Danone, right? I mean, obviously he didn't deliver the business results. There were obviously inherent challenges in the business that he didn't respond to as fast as he should have. And then, being a B Corp won't save you.
Mm.
I mean, so what is the role that Danone truly want to play in people's lives? And I think that's a pivotal question for them to answer going forward.
Yeah, and I think that brings you back also to. I really like the example of the insurance company because you can see the tangible link between what they do and what they're trying to achieve. It's you can measure it,
Yeah,
whereas because they're going to have KPIs on how many more people are quitting smoking or drinking less or exercising more or something like this, I would imagine. So it's micro, it's tangible, it's objectives. Whereas that whole saving the penguins, is
yeah.
pretty hard to measure, right?
Oh, it is. And what's even more interesting is, again, when you look at the leadership dimension in it. So we did a research where we compared typical purposeful commercials that goes out and say, we as a company are the agent of change, believe in us to solve all the ills of society, with what I call transformational commercials that go on and say, hey, wait a moment, Paul, you are actually the change agent of your life and you can do amazing stuff. When we compared those two approaches, it was pretty clear that the transformational commercials outperformed the typical purposeful one with 29.4%. People were on average 29.6% more willing to pay a premium price for that sort of relationship, and um, people people just simply responded better. So I think that's the sort of shift that we need to take in the sustainability space, which also makes sense because I think a lot of brands are faced with uh, the majority of their impact being in tier three, in the hands of consumers, in the hands of the customers. They are on a journey to reduce their footprint. The success of that ultimately resides in the hands of people. And if you see the shift that IKEA have done with, obviously it's still fast furniture,
Mhm.
and but if you look at, the stuff they've done around renewable energy, FSC forested um, uh, uh, forest, etc. But ultimately, right now, what they want to do is to get 1 billion people on this planet to live more sustainably at home. And that's an interesting challenge. And that's something they can do through their products and services. And that's something they can measure and follow up on.
Yeah, very interesting. And in your latest book, The Hero Trap, you herald the beginning of a new post-purpose era. Some of us think we haven't even sort of began the pre-purpose era or the purpose era.
Yeah.
And this is where brands will be seen as villains if they do not sort of put people's dreams and aspirations and creativity first. So tell me a bit about the book, its contributors, and I'm really interested for myself how I prevent biomarket insights falling into the hero trap, because we're in that space, obviously.
Yeah, I think a lot of the research. I was lucky to talk with a lot of different leaders. I mean, from the global CMO of P&G, Mark Pritchard, to small exciting startups like Marie Delacroix from Wheelies. So just to kind of uncover the whole shift that's happening right now, and and basically one of the things I'm obviously witnessing, and which's been accelerated by COVID, in fact, is the rising skepticism from consumers. A lot of the research that we're looking at is, in fact, that people don't necessarily look to companies anymore to create that change, but they look to themselves as the change agents, the sort of Greta Thunberg um, generation. And secondly, it's just a completely different market. I mean, with my first book, it was actually hard to find companies that had a purpose, that even spoke about anything near to sustainability. But today, I mean, I can't even go into a supermarket chain, and everybody's talking about cutting down on food waste, climate footprint, etc. And that's exactly why I say it's close to a post-purpose market. A purpose won't cut in the marketplace anymore. It's really the proof point about the change you can enable people's lives. And so one of the key things I wanted to do with the book was not only just to say, oh, all of this is wrong, but also wanted to paint a way forward for leadership. And I created a model called the Arrow, and just in respect of everybody's time, the methodology was inspired by psychotherapy and coaching, because both of those disciplines are goal oriented. But the primary question the Arrow asks is not the navel gazing why are you doing what you do, which is kind of unfortunately kind of giving you this sort of hero feeling.
Mm.
It's making you feel more self-important, but it's asking truly, who is it in fact you can help people become? And when you ask that question, I mean, there's so many exciting answers out there. There's so many roles you can play. I mean, take a snack company, the NGO, Daniel Brzezowski, the CEO and founder of the company. Um, he created a Kind Snacks. So it's basically they do granola bar, and the whole claim is because they're made out of ingredients that are better for the planet, that's better for your body. He want to promote kindness, and he's been exceptional good um, at growing the business on something that sticks out on the shelf, and the marketing, putting it live is a lot of fun. I mean, we live in a period where we definitely need much more kindness. We live in a very divided time. And he also shared how that actually inspires internally in the company, because we shouldn't forget a lot of the whole purpose spiel is in fact also to attract Gen Zs and all this stuff. Come work with us. Look at us. We're a good company. We're nice. We have the halo. Come work with us. But in fact, he said when they did the last little survey, 86% of his employees said that they felt more kind after working at Kind Snacks. And those were some of the insights that I gathered from talking to a lot of these kind of very, very different organizations, brands, and leaders. And being someone who, in my first book, was a big believer in purpose, I sort of had to take a hatchet to my own beliefs and say, maybe I'm doing this movement a disservice. Maybe it's about time to reframe this and start all over.
And there's so many, I'm from a corporate background, right? So I can see how everything in the funnel is coming together. Because when you talk about leadership versus management, you talk about empowerment, you talk about an empowered workforce is far more efficient, effective, and profitable than an unempowered one. And you don't empower people through management, you power them through sincerity and great leadership. So you can see that that has to happen from the top down. So it filters through the brand, through the employees, through the people on the checkout and everything else. So yeah, I think I can see that, it makes a lot of sense what you're saying. And I also think, like most things in life, it comes just back round to basic principles of good business.
Yeah.
There's no reinvention. We've tried to reinvent stuff, possibly you and I together, and you come back to, actually, it comes back to, good basic business principles.
It does. And honestly, I think that in that sense, nothing has really changed. I think the successful businesses out there are the ones that figured out the pivotal role that they're playing in people's lives. Because if you think about it, Apple, why is Apple a successful company? Because they actually figured out the role that they want to play in people's lives. It's about people pushing people to think different, giving them tool sets to do so. I mean, they've been so successful at it that my that my niece can do amazing stuff on an iPhone, and she's 11. She can just so, or take Nike, pushing people to athletic excellence, with the whole just do it movement, or Red Bull for that sake. I'm not saying Red Bull is a sustainable company whatsoever, but it's a company that figured out that it's not about selling that blue and red can, but it's about the feeling that you're giving people. I think that's a sort of basics that you need to figure out that is as important in the B2C market as it is in the B2B market. I actually don't like to talk about B2C and B2B because it's all about business to humans, in fact. So,
Yeah. Okay, listen, look, amazing. Could talk to you forever. Before we go, I always ask all of my guests one final question, which is, what in the sort of sustainability, environmental, bio world is putting a smile on your face at the moment? What should some of our give me a person, a project, or an initiative that our audience should go and check out?
oh, what am I fascinated about at the moment? Hmm, 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 hmm. Good question. Uh, See, now you catch me on a Wednesday morning with a big question like that. Um, you know what? I'll answer extremely general here. I think as I said introductory wise, what I'm fascinated about is really just the pioneering spirit. I'm really fascinated about all the new entrants into this space that are looking for materials in the oceans that are kind of disrupting everything we know. And for me, it's a massive source of inspiration, in fact. And I think it does show that the work that you're doing with biomarkets, the way that everybody comes together as a community is what really drives this forward. And I've seen that with good advertising. I see that with the movement that you guys are building. And that's probably what fascinates me. So it probably comes down to like the SDG 17 around collaboration. I think when we work together, when we inspire each other, I think we can do great stuff together.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer, and we're very much at Biomarket Insights. It's about bringing that community together, and this community is quite a confused community because the circular bioeconomy is a new, it's a relatively sort of new sector, if you like, and so we're all going to learn from one another, which makes it really exciting. And I think there is certainly a new thirst of sharing knowledge and intelligence around what I call the help economy. And, we all need as much help as we can get at the moment if we're going to try and achieve whether it be our financial or our planetary and societal objectives. So, yeah, I think it's an amazing message all around collaboration. And I am seeing that a lot at the moment, which is great. Listen, before we end this episode, Thomas, I just want to say that if anyone out there is interested in learning a bit more about Biomarket Insights TV, then please feel free to email me at paul@biomarketinsights.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn. And of course, if you've enjoyed this episode and other episodes, please feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Exactly, subscribe here. Thomas, it's been amazing. I love talking to you. Good luck with the book. Good luck. I know you've got lots of speaker engagements in Croatia today. So on behalf of myself and our viewers from all around the world, thanks ever so much. I wish you all the very best and have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Amazing, Paul. Thanks.